Hello, everyone. Welcome. My name is LJ Stambuk, and it is my pleasure to welcome today Earnest Winston, the Superintendent of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. He's going to speak to us today about building Charlotte's next generation of leaders. So, as the community's premier global education nonprofit, I would like to share with you that the World Affairs Council has many education programs, and we're very proud of them, from our Global Leaders Program that serves underserved schools to our Academic World Quest, which is the largest international education event in the Carolinas. We have a plethora of education programs that serve the community, and we're very proud of that. But the one I wanted to share with you today at this event is the community's World Affairs Council of Charlotte Council Scholar Program. We send teachers abroad to enhance their teaching skills in the subject matter that they teach, and also to get an international experience. It has been going on for over 15 years, and we have spent over $270,000 invested in our K-2 educators to provide them with a global view of education, and allowing them to, as I said, enhance their teaching skills. So we're very proud of that, and we just wanted to share today at this occasion with you that the Council's Program Scholars is going very strong, and we have 10 teachers that we hope will be able to travel abroad next summer. And thank you all for supporting this program. So we're celebrating the 37th anniversary of the World Affairs Council of Charlotte. And we're celebrating by asking you, our members and supporters, to possibly make a gift of $37, $370 or more, and help us reach our fundraising goal of $5,000 by Monday, August 31st. To those that have already contributed to our anniversary celebration, thank you so very, very much. A couple of housekeeping points. Your microphone will be on mute and your camera turned off for the duration of the presentation. To submit a question, and we do encourage you to please submit a question, please use the question and answer box in the Zoom toolbar, and you have a graphic of where that particular box is. This presentation will be recorded, and it will be shared with our World Affairs Council mailing list, other nonprofits in the area, around the country, and educational institutions and businesses. So please make sure that you have your email listed with us so we can send you a recording of this program today. If you like the World Affairs Council and what we do, please let us know by hitting like and share and follow. We would appreciate that very, very much. Let me use a moment before I introduce Ernest Winston to all of us to thank our board members who are here with us today. Your leadership, your efforts have made the World Affairs Council one of the most prominent and recognized nonprofits in the region. So thank you, World Affairs Council board members, for all you do. Ernest Winston was named Superintendent for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools in August of 2019. He brings the experience of a teacher, a parent, a communicator, and a chief of staff to the role. Winston joined Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools in 2004 as an English teacher at Wentz High School, where he also taught journalism and served as advisor to the school's student newspaper. After 2 years in the classroom, he moved into administration, joining the district's communications department as an external communications supervisor. Within CMS, he has also served as executive coordinator, communication liaison, chief of staff to the superintendent, and chief community relations and engagement officer. Winston began his career as a reporter in Ohio, where he covered local government as well as education in Northern Kentucky. He left Cincinnati to join the Charlotte Observer, where he covered government, development, general news, and wrote about his cousin, Jennifer Hudson, rise to fame on American Idol. Winston currently serves on the Board of Competencies in Schools of Charlotte-Mecklenburg. Previously, he served on the Freedom School Advisory Board at Friendship Missionary Baptist Church, where he's a member. He's also served on the board of Charlotte Works Youth Council, Stratford Richardson YMCA, Children's Scholarship Funds, and the Ohio Wesleyan University Alumni Board of Directors. Winston is a 2010 graduate of Leadership Charlotte and a 2016 graduate of the Leadership Development Initiative. Winston has been recognized as an Atrium Health Martin Luther King Jr. Growing the Dream Award recipient and a YBM Leader Alliance Leadership Alliance Success Leader. A native of Chicago, Winston holds a bachelor's degree in print journalism from Ohio Wesleyan University. He is married with 2 daughters who are CMS students, and incidentally, so are my 2 boys. They go to Myers Park, as we had a moment ago chance to discuss with Winston. So thank you so very much for being here. This is a very difficult time for education and education leaders. So we're looking very much forward to the conversation with you, your presentation, and we want to thank you for the hard work and effort that you're putting in making sure that our community gets the education that we need to lead the region and the country in the future. So please go ahead. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Stanbook, for that introduction. And I want to thank you for extending an invitation to me to join the World Affairs Council of Charlotte this afternoon. And it's not lost on me that this is your 37th year in existence. So I want to wish the council a very special happy birthday.
Thank you.
I trust and hope that you will be around for a minimum of 37 more years. So thank you for all of the contributions that you all have made to this community. Some that you highlighted at the beginning of your remarks, but many I know that most people may or may not be familiar with. But thank you so much for the partnership and the broad partnership with the teachers. I think that enriches the experience of our students here. And so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
I want to just speak with you briefly for a few moments, and I'd like to leave most of the time that we have together this afternoon to hear your thoughts, your comments, and your questions. And so I want to say good afternoon once again. And you all know that by now we are 9 days into the 2020-2021 school year. And if I recall correctly, this meeting was set in January of 2020 for April. And I often think about how much things have changed from January of 2020 to August of 2020, just 8, nearly 9 months ago. And so I am extremely glad to be here with you all. And even if it is virtually just through a screen, I'm a much more personable person. So one day, hopefully in the future, we can have an opportunity to do this again, and I can see you in person. And so as we transition to the next slide, I think that we all would agree. We would all agree that we never, and we can transition to the next slide, that we would have never envisioned entering a school would require face coverings and temperature checks. But this is our new normal, not just in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools, but across the country and across the world. This is our new normal. Next slide, please. And so you can see an example of one of our employees taking the temperature of a mascot, one of our, the Charlotte Knights mascot. And so I thought that was important because it shows you that every person, every adult, and hopefully soon every child who walks through our door will receive a temperature check. And that is one of the realities that we face now. And so, next slide. As we began preparing for this school year, in May, we actually began planning for the school year in May. There were more knowns, there were more unknowns, I should say, than the knowns that we had. We realized that we had the gift of time. We didn't have a lot of time, but we had more time than we had in the spring. Because if you will recall, the last day of in-person instruction for our students was March 13th. And our kids have not gone back to be inside their classrooms since March 13th. So we had a little bit more time before we opened schools to prepare over the summer months. So we took advantage of that time. And so on the next slide, I want to just spend a moment to talk about the preparations. So we spent time receiving and ordering PPE for our staff, but also for our students, because again, we're in a new normal. And it's important that our staff, our students, and our families feel safe riding the bus, coming to school. And so we had to order the personal protective equipment for 18,000 plus staff members. We had to create and order signage for 176 school buildings, but we have more than 250 buildings in the district. And so all of that equipment, that signage focused on social distancing, things such as hygiene awareness. And so what you see here is what we have supplied to our staff from the district level, but also what the state has provided. So the key takeaway here is that we handed out a lot of PPE this summer. And you can see the different numbers and the quantity of what we're dealing with. And so as we transition to the next slide, I mentioned safety preparations for staff and students. You know, our team had to plan for two scenarios. Some students in school on a rotation, and all students going full remote. You all know how that story ends. We started school in full remote for all students. And so whenever I get the question, how did you do that? And how did you reach all families? And that's an important question, because CMS is a very diverse school district. We've got more than 100 languages spoken by our students. And since March, we have been very intentional in providing resources and sharing information in our top 5 languages. And those languages, not in any particular order, but they are French, Nepali, Burmese, Spanish, and Portuguese. And so reaching all of the students before COVID certainly had its challenges. But I can tell you during COVID, we view it as a matter of equity. Children can't learn if they don't have access. And momentarily, I want to spend a little bit more time on the access issue. Next slide, please. And so thinking about how even in this environment, we have been forced to change. I have observed both staff and students exhibit leadership, competencies, a flexibility, of adaptability. These are skills that will serve our students well, no matter where they go when they leave us into adulthood. You know, COVID-19 has created an opportunity, I believe, for us to reimagine what public education looks like. This is the first time in history that educators have been thrust into a situation without a playbook, with the expectation to learn at a faster pace than their students. And so I know that before COVID, we struggled with home addresses, determining the quality of education students receive. Now, those home addresses have been replaced with IP addresses. And it's also important today, and maybe even more so, that we remain focused on setting high expectations and providing the curriculum that will provide the exposure to rigorous work in all classrooms. I believe we get to explore how to connect students to educators all across the district, not just in their brick and mortar buildings, but we can also connect the world in our virtual classrooms. And so, next slide. So how do students learn different languages in a remote environment? You know, this is a question I have received multiple times, and the response is, it's the same way children are learning any content. Doing it online, yes, makes it more challenging, but not impossible. And that's a message that I've tried to convey to our students and our staff. You know, back in the spring, we were unable to have the traditional graduation ceremonies that our families and our students have become accustomed to because of the pandemic. However, I share with students that we're going to do something different, and we tried to make it special and memorable. And my point to them was, different doesn't mean deficit or that you're not getting what you need. So I say all of this to say that doing this work online makes it a little bit more challenging. But I want you to know that our language immersion programs, they continue to thrive. Our teachers in those programs have online resources that are available to them to help with learning a new language. And I had the pleasure during the first week of school to visit nearly 20 of our different schools. And I visited one of our language immersion programs, and I saw firsthand the phenomenal job that our educators are doing with our students in a challenging environment. So it's been an adjustment, But our teachers, our educators, they have a plan. And from what I can tell, they are moving in the right direction. And students, and this is the most important piece of this, our students are engaged in learning. Next slide. So obviously, in order to do your work online, students need to have devices and service. And so what I am proud of in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools is that we're one of the few districts where our students, we have provisioned a device for every student in our district. So in grades K through 12, every student has a device. In K through 2, our students receive an iPad. And our other students in grades 3 through 12 receive a Chromebook. And so you see how many, from this slide, how many iPads and Chromebooks have been deployed. And I want to highlight our school-based staff, our technology team. They began distributing devices in early April. Each school developed a plan to do that, and they actually managed that inventory. We, and you'll see momentarily, have had to be very creative in how we distribute those devices. Now, as we move to the next slide, here's what I know. That devices don't work unless you have connectivity. And so here you see one of the many ways, as I mentioned, we've had to be very creative. Families drove up to the school, staff members handed devices to them, and they kept going. It was the most efficient way to do this. But we also knew that some families could not make it to the school. And so what did we do? Our buses hit the road. And I want to lift up our transportation team for this, but our buses hit the road and they began delivering devices to families. Now, again, this has been a challenge in this new environment because, you know, internet accessibility is an important utility. And we know that there are places in Charlotte, right here in our own backyard, with limited to no access to Wi-Fi. This is a barrier to the educational environment. And so I am also proud to say that the CMS Foundation is currently raising funds to help us meet that connectivity need. Now, we also as a district are providing access to different areas in our community across Charlotte-Mecklenburg as another way to provide our students with access to the internet. And you'll note that we are piloting a program at 5 of our schools in our communities that have significant need. We've also parked our yellow buses in 2 different locations across our community, again, where there's significant need. And so they are there throughout the day. We ask students and families to remain in their car and they can access the Wi-Fi that has been extended via the buses and via those 5 schools. You know, I've challenged my team to be creative, to think outside the box, to determine how can we continue to meet the needs of all of our students in this challenging environment. And you see the bright smiling face of our students when they receive a device. They're so excited, they're proud, they're happy. That's what we want to see. Next slide, please. And so I want to just share with you some of the current decisions that we've had to make. Next slide, please. So you'll see here that about 2 weeks ago, the North Carolina High School Athletic Association amended its schedule for this school year, and they released that amended schedule. And the proposed dates, as you'll note, are dependent on the conditions getting better across this state. And we know that here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, conditions, the metrics are moving in the right direction. And I believe that has occurred in large part because our citizens are heeding that advice that we have a role to play in this pandemic. We have a role to play in determining how much sooner our community, our schools begin to open back up by wearing our face masks, by practicing social distancing, by washing our hands, by doing all of the things that we must do if we want, and I know we all want to see our kids back in school sooner rather than later, but when it is safe to do so. And so, as it relates to athletics, we announced a phased-in return to athletic activity on our high school campuses, beginning no earlier than September the 14th. And so cross-country and volleyball. Cross-country and volleyball are the initial sports teams that will be returning to our campuses. And those are the same sports teams that the High School Athletic Association phased in as the initial teams for this school year. So that phased in approach that we're taking, we're going to have to follow the guidelines that have been issued by the state, many of which I've just mentioned to you around social distancing and taking the proper hygiene measures in order to ensure the safety of our student athletes and our coaches. And so we're going to be subsequently phasing in our sports team in a sequenced manner similar to the High School Athletic Association. And we'll do that with the input of our athletic directors and our high school principals. And then we'll also obviously continue to monitor the conditions in Mecklenburg County and across the state through our phased-in return to athletic activity. And the last thing that I want to point out here is that our middle school and our K-8 athletic activity has been suspended through at least the first semester. You know, we depend, and I don't know how many people realize this, but we depend largely on revenues from our high school athletics competitions to help fund our middle school athletics. And so at this time, we've decided to pause our middle school athletics. Next slide, please. Now, here I want to just note another step that we've taken. This week, our Board of Education approved a partnership that allows us to contract with our community-based organizations to establish remote facilities for students. And so that's important because we know the need is great in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. we know that families in our community have been challenged significantly in terms of their jobs and ensuring that their children have a safe place to go and receive their education when they can't be home with them. And so this opportunity is available for our non-licensed entities across our county and our community. And so these facilities will not be inside schools, because remember, CMS is, our buildings are closed for learning, but we know that learning is taking place remotely. And so I just want to lift up that if anyone's interested, our information will go live on Monday on the CMS website. And the application, it's a standard application, will be online, and you can go there and fill that out to request access or participation in this program. And so here, as we look at the next slide, I thought it was very important. This short video, and we can play about half of it. We don't have to play the entire video. It's about 7 minutes long. And, but I wanted you all to get a feel for some of the comments and the feedback that our parents have shared with us as it relates to the online remote learning experience. And so at this time, I'd like to be able to just share some comments with you.
We're all in the same position. I mean, we're all new to this. This is all new, but we can either approach it from the lens of what we can't do, or we can approach it from the lens of this is what I'm able to do. And I choose to be positive. I choose to remain hopeful, and I choose to see the opportunities that this virtual learning actually creates. So I'm really hopeful about that. And that's something that we all can make sure that we have the right attitude about this entire process.
So the kids are so engaged. I get a lot of, I'm sad I'm not with you, but this is kind of cool that we're learning. And so they want to learn. And, you know, we tell them you need to come to one reading class and one math class, and they're coming to like 3 reading classes and 3 math classes because they just want to learn all day long. So they absolutely love it. And so I know parents were concerned about the amount of screen time that was going to be involved, but there's really not a lot. I mean, they just come in, they do some work, and then they're off. But the kids want more. The kids are coming repeatedly to our classes, and they're asking for more.
Teachers were just extremely open, and they were refreshed, and they felt like, wow, the energy was just a different level.
There's going to be challenges. We know that there are going to be hiccups along the way. We're going to get new processes as we go on throughout the school year, and we have to model what the expectation is for our students. And so if we are frantic and frenzied, our students are going to go just as we go. And if we maintain that calm presence, and if we continue to be that steady, constant contact for kids, then they're going to turn to school and see school as that positive source in their life, to where they know there's going to be consistency time and time again, regardless of what day it is.
I've only been here for like 3 weeks, but I feel like I've gotten a good feel of like CMS. And I like when the teachers do the breakout room so that we can talk to other kids and do projects together that way.
I've been doing some one-on-one assessments with my first graders. And when we're done, I get to have that one-on-one time with them. We talk a little bit after the sessions. And, you know, if we were in the classroom, of course, it's more personable, but I don't always get that one-on-one time that first week of school with kids. So we've been able to chat it up. I show them the classroom. I take the computer and just pivot it around, and they love it. And they're like, what's that on the wall? Or where's my cubby going to be? And, you know, so they're engaging that way. And, you know, it's just been fun.
It may not look the way that we've always done it. And, you know, and we have to move past that point, but we have to find a new way of doing something, or a new normal. And sometimes we may hit the mark, or sometimes we may miss the mark. But just to know that whatever we're doing, we're trying to do it in the best way for children. but also for each other. And if we stay together and continue to try to work through these processes, and we continue to have that honest, caring relationship as we're working through the process, then, then we're able to maneuver and do the things we're needing to do.
One thing that I've really loved about this past week is I feel like the teachers have really made an effort to kind of foster our relationship even more so than I feel like in the past, because you're looking at a screen, you're looking at all these strangers. So I feel like I've done a lot of activities, like we had to write a letter to each teacher, and I feel like I was like telling all this fun facts about myself. And I feel like they were really getting to know me more so than even if I were to be in this, in the school building.
All of our students will continue to be all in and really think about the end goal in mind, and that is to ensure that all of our students have an opportunity to be successful in this journey called high school, despite us being remote. And so we're extremely excited. It's been a rocky road, but it's one road that we are all committed to ensuring that we keep our students as the main focus, and that we are extending grace to our students and to each other as educators. So we're excited and look forward to continuing with this journey.
At the end of every small group, they wave like they're not going to see me again because they're excited, and I'll see them in 10 minutes, but they don't want to leave. And that really shows me that despite all of it being virtual, they really do feel connected, and they're really excited to be learning again and to be kind of in a routine.
I'm having fun. It's fun. But I truly miss the kids. Just being there with them and just seeing their faces, and I miss the hugs. Yeah. I miss that contact with the kids. But yesterday was the first day that I learned how to incorporate video, so I could share my screen. And as I'm sharing my screen, I'm showing a video. So the same thing that I was doing when the kids were right there sitting at the desk, I found a way to make it happen once again.
When our synchronous learning time is over, my kids won't leave. They don't let us go after their 30 minutes of synchronous learning. They don't want the asynchronous time. They want to be on the screen, and they want that Zoom time the entire block of our class time. They never want to leave. I have to kick them out. I'm like, no, it's time for your next class.
My focus this past week has been to, just kind of help my students get back into the swing of things, get back on schedule, get used to at least coming to PE virtually during the time that they would normally, and just making it a welcoming environment for my students.
Zoom is really allowing us the opportunity to form the breakout rooms and to jump in, and you really kind of feel like you're in the classroom. So I've been very, very impressed. The days have been long, but I think we're taking the extra time to make sure that our kids are all getting in, understanding how to work Canvas, and their parents. We spend a lot of time in our planning and in the afternoons, trying to go that extra mile to make sure that everyone feels connected. The parents have been so supportive. They've been so appreciative. And my colleagues, even though we're remote and we're Zooming one another from either everyone's homes or if we've been in the classroom, I miss having that face-to-face interaction, but we're supporting each other nonetheless.
I was prepared. If we transition to the next slide, I did prepare a few slides for you to be able to see firsthand what some of the feedback has been for our families. And so if you look at this particular slide, this is the parent of a first and third grade students who we have the privilege and honor of serving in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. But this is a parent who has a technology background. And so this parent understands the importance of technology. And what this parent said was that it has been so easy this week to access all the materials, a few glitches here and there, but overall a great experience. Now, I will tell you that there have been some glitches, some things that are outside of our control by and large. For example, on day one, there was a statewide issue with one of the platforms called NC Ed Cloud, and districts across the state experience some challenges in helping to get students logged on, and we all experience that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, in this time when everyone is on their device and logging on, things like this will happen. But a lesson that I take away from it is, you know, our teachers and our kids were absolutely resilient because our teachers helped our families, our children navigate around this technological glitch. And they found alternative ways to access online learning. And so I tell students, what do you do when things go wrong? Because we know sometimes in life, things won't always go the way we want. Are we going to throw ourselves a pity party, or are we going to find a way around it? We're going to be resilient, be adaptable. And so those are some of the lessons that I think students can take away from online learning. And by the way, I do believe because our students in Charlotte-Mecklenburg are not just competing with their peers in Charlotte-Mecklenburg or North Carolina or just the United States, but our students are competing against students across this globe. And I do think that one of the positive outcomes about learning remotely is that they have become accustomed and more familiar with how to navigate the online environment. And so with the next slide, I want to share with you, this is a testimonial from a parent of a middle school student. These are unprecedented times, and I know that it creates for some of our families a hardship, and we're working with our families to address those needs and give our families and our teachers a little bit of grace during these unprecedented times. And so the last testimonial that I want to share with you comes from the parent of a first grader as well as a kindergarten student. And she says that our experience so far has already exceeded my expectations. And that's a huge testament to the hard work and preparations of the school. She said her kids have been excited to be on their Zoom calls with their peers and their teachers every day and have been loving the live specials too. And she said, I can tell that my daughter is happier now compared to the spring because she has seen all of those familiar teachers' faces so much more. And I will tell you, as I conclude my remarks, I will tell you that that has been the same experience that my two girls have shared with me about their online learning. And again, I know that not all families have the same experience. You know, our teachers did not go to school and get trained in how to teach remotely. And so we've had to adjust and be very agile very quickly. And they've done a magnificent job. And I cannot express as much as I feel how appreciative I am for all of our educators, our bus drivers, our custodians, our principals, all of our support staff in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. I owe a great debt of gratitude to all of our employees and our families for their patience and their perseverance, and our little ones, our students. And so with that, I want to conclude my remarks, and I look forward to entertaining any questions that you you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And now, the board member of the World Affairs Council, Charlotte-Mecklenburg Cox.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Superintendent Winston, for this wonderful report. It is truly mind-boggling to see what you all have accomplished since March. Really, I listen to Ann Doss Helms frequently on WFAE, the wrap-up at the end of the week on the schools. And I'm just totally amazed with what you've done. So thank you for your hard and diligent work. I think of you every day. Now we've got some really good questions here. Let's see, I'm gonna pull them up right now. The very first one is from Don Upton. It's a long one, so be patient, everyone. It's a good one, though. He says, we're seeing some exciting successes around the United States when it comes to regional collaboration in grades 9 through 16 space. Colleges, universities, districts, and industries are addressing curriculum and skills opportunities with speed. What's your vision for seamless, career path-oriented work in this 9 through 16 space at CMS? When it comes to credential and degree attainment and early student engagement and skilled employment activities, CMS seems like it could be a true leader.
That happens at least once I begin to talk and my mute button is on. So thank you again, Ms. Cox, for that question. You know, I think the possibilities are endless when it comes to that space. And we have already, we're already in that space. We've got some very strong partnerships with our local colleges and universities. And that obviously includes CPCC, UNCC, Queens, Johnson C. Smith. We've got some very strong partnerships with them, and that allows our students, while they're still in high school, to take college level courses at the college and university level. And many of those courses lead directly to jobs after our students leave us. And so, you know, that's what we're about. I believe our responsibility is to prepare our students for meaningful opportunities in higher education or employment or the military. Whatever a student's desire is, it's our responsibility to prepare him or her for those opportunities that follows their career in CMS. And so our partnerships with our local colleges and universities and many businesses that partner with our schools. And I'll take Olympic High School for an example. We have students who are involved with internships with businesses in that area. And many of our students have come directly out of high school after graduating and have received jobs. And so, you know, we have a tremendous opportunity to be able to grow that program. And that's what I look forward to doing with our colleges and our university partners, to make sure that we're providing all of our students with the opportunity and access to higher education or employment, whatever fits their needs.
Thank you very much. I've got several questions. I'll kind of group some of them. One of them is from Natasha Stambach. Several others are anonymous, but they all have to do with, Natasha says, it's been reported in the press that CMS is working on a plan to return back to school. Can you please comment on that? And does CMS have a set of COVID metrics for when schools can reopen? And that's virtually the other questions too.
Okay, I can tackle both of those. Thank you, Ms. Cox. And so, yes, we are working on a plan to return our students to in-person instruction as soon as possible, but when it is safe as possible. And I have to give that caveat because I know our educators, they want nothing more. I know our parents want nothing more than to have our children inside of our classrooms. And coincidentally, I should say that many of our teachers during this remote experience, many of our teachers have opted to teach from their classrooms. We've strongly encouraged that. We haven't mandated it, but we've strongly encouraged that. And so many of our teachers have taken that opportunity to teach from their classrooms. Now, so again, we are working on plans. They're very preliminary at this point to return students back to school in a phased-in approach. What won't happen is that you'll see all kids go back to school at once. We have to do this in a methodical and strategic way. And some of the models that we're looking at include bringing back students in some of our earlier grades back so that we prioritize our youngest kids. We also want to prioritize our students, some of our most vulnerable students. And so I think about our exceptional children, our students with disabilities. And so that's our thinking at this point, very preliminary, but we have to begin planning for a time when students will return to our buildings. And the last piece of that question was around the metrics, which are extremely important. And so we have a metrics advisory committee that is comprised of professionals and experts from our public and private healthcare sector here in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. We also have a principal, a teacher, and other district staff on that committee. And their charge, and they actually met today for the second time, and they will meet again next week. But their charge is to develop a set of metrics, health metrics, as well as metrics that are within the district's control, that can then be used to help our district determine when it is safe for students to return to in-person learning. And so you can expect to hear more in the coming weeks about those metrics, because we will share those publicly so that all of our community members and our families can understand the work of the committee.
Thank you very much. I have a few other really good questions here. Let's see if we can squeeze these in.
And I'll be brief, Ms. Cox.
Oh, I lost this one. Let me see. Are there limitations to the Chromebook technology? Are the email capabilities limited to CMS emails? Do Chromebooks have full capabilities of a laptop, or are they limited to the learning platforms?
So what we have advised families is that although CMS does issue Chromebooks and iPads to our students, families can take advantage if they want to utilize their own technology at home. And many families have actually done that because we know that there's a greater comfort level. Now, those Chromebooks, those personal computers, you can still access the material. Canvas is our learning management platform because it's sort of a one-stop shop. And there is an app that families can download as well, you know, to their device, their smartphone, what have you. But Canvas is our online, our learning management system that allows families to be able to communicate back and forth with teachers. Students can get their work. It allows families to check and have an understanding of, okay, where is my child in this particular assignment? It just allows for that two-way communication, which is so important during this pandemic. But there are some challenges as it relates to technology that we have experienced. We know that we have families in our community who don't have the connectivity. So you can have a laptop, you can have a device, but if you don't have internet access, then it becomes even more challenging. And so, what we've done, as I mentioned earlier, with the work of the foundation, the CMS Foundation, is that we're working to secure additional hotspots, and we've put buses in different locations across our community, as well as we've expanded the Wi-Fi access outside of a number of our schools so families can have that opportunity to access the online learning. But certainly the books and the iPads, families who don't need those have chosen to use their personal devices, which is fine. And either way, they can still access the same materials that are needed in this remote environment.
Two questions. I'm going to jump to two questions. Kathleen Evans and also David Jones. What's the latest hotspot need? You just were talking about that. And how best can we help some of these families? You mentioned foundation. How best can we help?
Well, I will tell you that the latest number that we came up with is about 16,000 hotspots. And I know that some people will probably say that's a large number because in the spring, certainly that number was not as large. The CMS Foundation actually purchased, through a fundraising effort, 6,000 hotspots and gave out about 3,000 of them back in the spring and another 3,000 this fall or late summer. But as we move forward in this pandemic, as time moved forward, one of the things that we found is that families' economic circumstances, many of our families, it had drastically changed from March to August. Financial hardships, job losses. And so families who back in the spring may have had a reliable source of internet access, that began to change. Many of our families took advantage of the 2 months of free internet access that was offered by Spectrum. And we're grateful for that, but that was just 2 months. And so we learned as our teachers began making calls to our families when they returned. Our teachers returned on August the 6th. And so they began reaching out to families to make that connection, to begin to build those relationships. But just as important, to find out what type of barriers existed. And so one of the things that we have learned is that more families now need internet connectivity because of those circumstances that I described. And if any individual wants to help or any company wants to help, they can contact the CMS Foundation. I am happy to provide that link to Jessica or anyone so that we can provide that information to anyone who's listening and wants to help. But I know that they have expanded their fundraising efforts to be able to purchase some additional hotspots for the students who need them.
Thank you very much. An anonymous question came in, I think is a good one. She says, as a CMS parent of a high school student, I want to let you know that so far remote learning is much better organized than in the spring. One concern is PE. Students are already in front of the screens many hours a day, and PE is handled just like any other class, where they talk about the need to be active but are actually sitting in front of a screen. Perhaps it would make sense to change that district-wide and have PE teachers lead the students in doing some push-ups or sit-ups or stretches.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And it's one that I will take back to my team, and I'll say, well, you know, why can't we do this? I mean, because we want our students to be physically active. And so I'm encouraged when we receive feedback from our parents, because they will tell you what's working and what's not working. And so I am very appreciative of the feedback that our parents have. And so I thank you very much. And we'll take that back and figure out how we can encourage our kids to be more physically active during PE. Thank you.
That would be great. And two more questions. I think we have time.
Yes.
One anonymous again. What are your thoughts on introducing foreign language classes at the elementary school level across the board versus just having them at the language immersion schools?
That's a very good recommendation. And what I will say is that I am happy to, and I like to jot things down so that I don't forget these recommendations that are coming in. That is certainly something that I am willing to explore. Because I do think it makes sense when we have students, and I think this is another way to engage our students and help them become global citizens. And I know that the World Affairs Council is very interested in making sure that our students become global citizens, because we've got to make sure they're globally competitive. And I mentioned earlier, not just competing against peers in Charlotte or North Carolina or even the United States, but they're competing against peers across the world. And we know it's important for students to be as diverse and speak as multiple languages and so forth. I think that's and definitely open to considering that as a possibility.
Well, thank you so much. I see Wayne, our chairman, Wayne Cooper, but I do have one last teeny question. Happens to be really good if you could just squeeze it in.
Absolutely. For you, Ms. Cox, I'm more than happy to do so. And I will also say, if there are additional questions that you would like me to respond to, I am happy to do that once we wrap up, and I can provide those responses in writing if that's helpful. I just wanted to provide another option.
Well, that's great. This one comes from Charlotte Klopp, and she has a first grader at Bain Elementary. Her teacher's doing great to keep him engaged. He's on his social science Zoom call right now. Charlotte says, do you think that we'll see more virtual learning opportunities even as school goes back in person now that we know how to handle the technology? That's a good final question.
That is a great question. I do think virtual remote learning is here to stay. I think that we've dipped our toe in the water, and I don't know that there's any going back from it. I think about in particular when we have severe weather or inclement weather days. I think what we have experienced and what we are experiencing now has given us the ability to say that, when we have severe weather days, our students could potentially learn remotely. And so, I definitely do think remote learning is here to stay. We hopefully we won't have to do as much of it as we're doing now, but certainly I do think it's here to stay.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you. You have just enlightened us all, and we just, again, commend you on everything that you're doing for our children. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Wayne Cooper. Wayne, where did you go? He's our chairman of the World Affairs Council, and I'm taking myself off the screen. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank you, Millie, very, very much. And thank you for an excellent, excellent program. I'm hoping our video's on now. But we really, really appreciate the opportunity to have you today, Superintendent Winston. We really, really need your help. And the World Affairs Council is going through some very trying times, and LJ and the staff are working better, or working, sorry, first rule. I'm sorry. But LJ and staff is working through some very harder than ever to bring us a great programs like today. But we need for you to become members. And if you are members, please consider sending a donation to the World Affairs Council to further this bringing great programs here. With that, we appreciate it again. Thank you all for participating, and we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting. Thanks, and sorry about the phone. Meeting adjourned. LJ?